So it's 1 o'clock, and I'm supposed to start at 1 o'clock, and I do more things that I was supposed to do than when I was younger. So I'm going to start. And I'm going to start with introductions. Because that's another thing my mother taught me to do when I was growing up. You know, the polite thing to do when you meet new people. Introduce yourself, right? Okay. Yeah. My mom says that I do more of the things she was trying to teach me now than I did then. This is one of them. My name is Davis Bates. I am a singer. I am a storyteller. I'm going to do both, but my mom also taught me that introductions are a two-way street. And I'd like to know who all of you are. So on the count of 3, it'll save some time. Nice and loud, because my daughter says I'm getting hard of hearing, and she's actually right. On the count of 3, just say your name. Right? Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Now, I may not remember all your names. That's a lot to learn at once. Don't take it personally if you have to remind me later, but now that we know each other, I can give you some songs, give you some stories. Everything I'm going to give you, I'm not going to take back. You get to keep them and give it to somebody else. This is a program called the Celtic Celebration, in honor of St. Patrick's Day, in honor of the folklore from Scotland, Ireland, perhaps Wales. I don't know if I'll tell that story. And I am actually, how many, raise your hand if you have of Irish heritage? I don't. I have to apologize for that. I do have Scottish heritage. Yeah, I'm Scottish. Yeah, often it's a mix. I also have a couple connections to St. Patrick's Day. One of the reasons I brought this stool is so I could show you my socks. See these?
Yeah.
My mom did these. Yeah, I know. And they're out of yarn she got in Scotland.
Whoa.
Yeah. And another connection I have to St. Patrick's Day is that was my due date, according to my mom. That's when I was supposed to be born. I was going to be her first child. I actually was her first child, but I was not her first child on St. Patrick's Day. I started a trend right off by being late. I didn't appear on St. Patrick's Day, and then it was the 18th and I still wasn't born, and it was the 19th I still wasn't born, and then we're into the 20s, I still was not born. It was the last day of March and I still was not born, and then it was April Fool's Day and I still wasn't born. And my mom was getting kind of tired of it, having me on the inside, and she'd been walking around this way for a while, and she was really wanting to have me on the outside and be able to hold me in her arms instead of inside her belly. And on the 2nd, April 2nd was my grandfather's birthday, her dad. She called her dad to wish him a happy birthday, and then she said, after talking to him for a while, she said, "Can I talk to Mom?" You know, sometimes when you're going to have your first child, there are things you can only ask your mom, right? She said, "Mom, he's still on the inside. I want him on the outside. Is there anything I can do?" And her mother said, my grandmother said, "Go bowling." You like bowling, right? Yeah, my mom was actually in the league. A bowling league. She actually had her own bag with the bowling ball inside it that she carried around. Go bowling? Yeah, it ought to move things along. So the next day, she and my dad went bowling. Couple of strings. That night she went into labor. I was born the next day. And I only know this story, April 4th, I only know this story because I was living in a house with a bunch of other folks, and most of us just graduated from college. There were a couple older people there, and the woman was pregnant and she was overdue, and I happened to be talking to my mom on the phone, and I mentioned this, and she said, "You know, you should all go bowling," and she told me the story, and so I told her, "Hey, my mom says should we go bowling?" All 7 of us went to Northampton, to the Northampton Bowladrome. I always wondered why they called them bowladromes, but anyway, we went bowling, and that night she went into labor, and she had her daughter the next day. And then when my son's mom was pregnant and she was overdue, I didn't even have to call my mom. I just said, "Hey, let's go bowling." So we went into a bowling alley, we bowled, and the next day my son was born. So if you know of anybody who's overdue, relative or not, just tell them to go bowling. Yeah. That works. And the other connection I have to St. Patrick's Day, and I love Irish stories and songs, and Scottish stories and songs. I'm a kind of collector. When I was a kid, I collected mostly baseball cards. I had a lot of baseball cards. I loved sorting them. And then as I got older, I started collecting other things like songs and stories. And the great things about songs and stories when you collect them is you can give them away and you still have them. You can't do that with a baseball card. So I've collected these over the years. This song I got from a record, and it's another version of a story that I'm going to tell you afterwards. It's an Irish story. I think this has its roots in Ireland, but it must have traveled to England, like a lot of folks did, and Yorkshire, and then it got into a song form, traveled over to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, and down into this country, the way a lot of folks did too. You know, we know now that, and we're seeing it again, that some folks have to move for reasons that they don't really like. And often they can just pack a small suitcase or a little backpack. But even if they can't carry most of the things they'd like to carry, they can always carry every single story they've ever learned, or every single song they've been sung. And then when they sing them or tell them, they remind themselves of home. And this song has a great chorus. It's very simple. It goes like this. I'll teach it to you. It's a good way to start singing together. The chorus goes, "Fa the long day." That's it. It makes no sense, but it's short. So on the count of three, we'll all do that together. Ready? Here we go. And I should tell you, this is folk music. You may have been told that you can't sing, but it's not true. Everybody can sing. There's no such thing as a wrong note in this song. So on the count of three, don't be shy. We'll all do that together. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Fa the long day. You got it. And you'll know when it's coming because the last 2 words of every verse where the story is and sing. So it won't take you by surprise. You'll know exactly what to do and when. Okay? Here's the story. There was a rich farmer in Yorkshire did dwell, had Jack for a servant, and that you know well. The cows being gathered, he had one to spare. He said, "Johnny, me boy, you must go to the fair and sing." Fa the long day. Well, in through the glare and out through the glen, Jack led the cow with a rope in his hand. And on his way there he came to 3 men, and he sold them the cow for 16 pounds 10 and sing. Fa the long day. Came to an old woman to hurry to say, "Where shall I put all this money away?" "Into your coat lining," to him she did say, "in case on the road some robber may be and sing." Fa the long day. Well, on his way home he came to a dark lane. Out jumped the robber, I'll tell you in plain. "Deliver your money without any strife, or with this flat sword I'll take your sweet life and sing." Fa the long day. Well, they ripped open the lining, the money fell out. All in the tall grass it lay scattered about. And while the robber was picking it up in his purse, Jack made no delay, but jumped on the robber's horse and sang. Fa the long day. Well, the robber called out, he bade Jack to stay. Jack made no answer, just rode on his way. Straight home to his master's own house he did go, with a bridle and saddle instead of a cow and sing. Fa the long day. Well, the farmer came out all in a great fuss. He said, "Johnny, me boy, me cow's turned into a horse." Oh master, your cow I have sold, but I have been robbed of your silver and gold and sing. Fa the long day. Well, they looked in the saddle, and lo and behold, 5,000 pounds of silver and gold. Besides 2 brass pistols, the farmer did vow. He said, "Johnny, me boy, you've well sold me cow and sing." Fa the long day. And now for your brave and honorable day, half of this money will come to your pay. Besides, she'll have you my daughter for a wife, and you shall live well all the days of your life and sing. Fa the long day. That's the well-sold cow. Another name for that song that I've seen is Jack the Cowboy. Not cowboys like you have out in the western part of the United States, but cowboys as the boy that follows the cow from place to place. And I like to think that Jack and the farmer's daughter saw through the plan to keep all the money in the family. And they liked each other okay. but maybe not that much. So he took his half of the money and walked down the roadways, got himself a place. You can do that with stories, you know. If you're the one telling it and you don't like the ending, you get to change it. It's okay. Or if you're telling a story that you've heard and you want to know what happens next, but nobody ever told you, you get to make it up. That's how stories change as they go from place to place. Or somebody forgets part of it and they have to fill in with their own imagination. But I don't know which version of that story came first. I'm thinking it's the one I'm going to tell you now. But I don't know for sure. I heard this at the 5 College Folk Festival back when I was going to Hampshire College. If any of you know of Hampshire College and have heard of it lately, you may have been worried about it, but it's okay, we're doing fine. And there was this session at Mount Holyoke College with Maggie Peirce, who grew up in Dublin but emigrated to this country at that time, and I think she still is living in North Dartmouth. A couple of the Clancy brothers, and a couple people from another Irish band, sitting around the fireplace, swapping stories, and joshing with each other. And Maggie told this story, and she started it by saying, there once was a wee fella. A wee fella, I don't know his name, that's why I call him the wee fella. And he was a wee fella. And he lived in a family with a lot of fellas, and he was the weest one. And there wasn't much food for the family, especially when you spread it out amongst all the fellas. And one day, his mom and his dad said to him, you know, you should go down the roadways and work for that farmer and his wife who don't have any children. They've got food and they can feed you, and you wouldn't be so wee anymore. And he said, that's the right idea. And he went the next day. And he said, can I work for you? And he said, sure. And he became part of the family. And he fed him, and he fed him really well. And he loved working for them. They were nice. And he was sitting around dinner one time. You know how it is when you're sitting around the dinner table after dinner because you don't really want to wash the dishes yet. And that's what they were doing. And they were talking and swapping stories. And the man said to his wife, you know, I could really use that money that the man owes me in town. I could buy another team of horses, get more work done. Now we have the wee fella. And he owes me 10 gold pieces. So, but you know, if I go and get the money, and I come back through the woods, there's a highwayman who lives in the woods, and he's bound to take the money away from me, and then I don't have it anymore. Now I don't have it, but at least I can imagine having it, because it's there waiting for me. But if the man takes it away, the highwayman, I won't have it at all, so I should just leave it there. And the wee fella looked up at the farmer, and he says, you know, I could get that money for you. You could? I'll get it for you. You? Yeah. But you're a wee fella. I know. Aren't you afraid of the highwayman? No. He won't think I have any money. We fellas, we don't have any money at all. They'll just see me go by and leave me alone. I'll bring the money back to you. You sure? I'll go tomorrow. And he did. The next day he went. He started wondering, it was one of those days like today, you know, where the sun is shining, and you start whistling even before you think about whistling, and you discover after you started whistling, because you're so happy. And that's what the wee fella did. He was whistling, going down the lane, and then he was into the woods. He was halfway through the woods when out of the trees came a man on a big gray horse. He was a huge man. He was all dressed in red. Red coat, red pants, red hat with a white feather, except for his shirt. It was one of those white ruffled shirts with the fronts, you know, that are ruffled. And he had a sword on one side and a pistol on the other. He was a fine-looking man. And he looked down at the wee fella and said, hello, wee fella. And he said, hello. Where are you headed? Oh, I'm headed to town. What you going to be doing there? Oh, there's a man in town who owes the farmer I live with 10 gold pieces. I'm going to go get the gold pieces. Yeah? Aren't you afraid of the highwayman that lives in these woods? Oh, no. I'm just a wee fella. He won't think I have any money. I'm not afraid of the highwayman. Oh, you're a right brave lad. I'm impressed with you. You know, I'm so impressed that I'm going to meet you right here on your way back. And I'll help you take care of that money. Oh, you will? I certainly will. Oh, that's right, nice of you. It sure is. I'll see you on your way back. And you will. And off the boy went whistling down into town. And he got the 10 gold pieces from the man. He found his house, and he's pouring the 10 gold pieces back and forth from one hand to the other, where you can with coins, you know. And they make a sound as they clink back and forth, and the light of the gold was so nice. But then he stopped, and he said, you know, it's a pretty sound. And it's a pretty color. But it's only one color, he said. And he picked up a gold piece and he held it out to the man who gave him the money. He said, could you give me 20 silver pieces for this gold piece? I can, but why? Oh, there'd be 2 colors and 2 sounds. A strange lad. All right, and he took the gold piece. We've got 20 silver pieces, gave him to the lad. Now he's pouring them back and forth from one hand to the other, and it's two colors mixed together, two sounds, and he's going, oh, that's so much nicer. Two colors, two sounds, but you know, it's still only two. Tell you what, he held out a silver piece to the man. Will you give me a bag of copper pennies for this silver piece? That's going to be a very big bag of copper pennies. That's okay, I'll just carry it over my shoulder. At least it'll be three colors. You're a very strange lad. And the man went off and he got the big sack of copper coins and he gave it to the lad. And the wee fella, he put the 9 gold pieces and the 19 silver pieces in the inside pocket of his coat. And then he took the bag of pennies and he slung it over his shoulder and he said goodbye to the man who gave him the money and he went out of town and he's walking in through the woods. Halfway through the woods, out of the trees, came that same man on a big gray horse, dressed all in red, same ruffled shirt, the same hat, the same feather, same pistol, same sword, and now he was wearing a mask over the bottom half of his face. And he looked at the wee fella and he said, I told you I'd help you take care of the money. You got it, don't you? Aye. And he held out his sword and he said, all right, if I'm going to take care of it, you got to give it to me. Now give me that money. And the wee fella looked at him and said, you're the highwayman. Oh, you're a nice, smart lad, you are. Yes, I'm the highwayman. Now, give me that money. I'm not giving you the money. You're not. No, if you want this money, you're going to have to work for it. And the wee fella, he took that sack and he threw it into the woods, through the trees. It disappeared into the woods, landed on the ground. You could hear it land and the coins scattered. And the man on the horse died with him and said, oh, never let it be said, I'm too proud to work for my money. And he got off the horse and he started into the trees. He was out of sight looking for the coins. As soon as he was out of sight, the wee fella, he hopped up on his horse and kicked the sides of the horse, held onto the reins. That horse took off. And the highwayman heard and came out and shot his pistol, but that horse was fast. It was out of sight. And in no time at all, the wee fellow was clattering down the lane to the farmer's place, into the yard. He jumped off and the farmer came out and said, wee fella, I sent you for coins, not a horse. Where did this horse come from? And the wee fella, he told him the story. And they looked in the saddlebags. And in those saddlebags, there were 200 gold pieces and 450 silver pieces. And there were ruby rings and emerald necklaces, all sorts of jewelry. And the man said, wee fella, you done right. Nice by yourself. I tell you what, half of this money should come to you. Well, you take it. And the wee fella said, thank you. And he did. He took that money and he went home. Because now with all that money, there was enough to feed all the fellas in the family, including the wee fella. And that's the story of the wee fella and the lad. Remember the story? Now, that character in the song, and actually that wee fella is actually a folk character called Jack, who's a famous Scots-Irish character in trickster stories. The most famous one, of course, is Jack and the Beanstalk, but there's a whole bunch of Jack tales that were collected, and Richard Chase collected them down in the Appalachian region of Carolinas and Virginia, West Virginia. This song has been collected. My dad actually collected this song and sang it. He was not Irish either. He sang this in barbershop quartet groups when he was in high school and college to make enough money to buy textbooks. And he sang it to me at bedtime. It has Irish roots, this song. We had a bedtime when I was growing up at 7:30. That's when we were supposed to be in bed every night, except on Sunday when we watched Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color. And then we had to go to bed at 8 immediately after it was over. But most nights we'd be read to for half an hour till 8 o'clock, then the lights would go out and my mom or dad would sing to us for half an hour, going up to 8:30. And I loved this song the first 1,000 times I heard it. The next couple thousand, it was okay. And then I grew up, and I hardly ever sang it at all because I was looking for new songs. And then I learned how to play these.
Yes.
Yeah. Any of you have these at home? Mm-hmm. Oh, good. Because I'm going to give you a short lesson on how to play music with spoons. There are YouTube videos about this, so you don't have to take notes. You'll probably remember anyway. The first thing about playing music with spoons is, if anybody in the room has a headache, it's a really good idea to go to another room. Yeah. And the other thing about playing music with spoons is you use flat handle spoons. You don't use the round ones. They're pretty, but they just don't work for this song. You put one flat handle spoon between your thumb and your first finger like this. The next one goes between your first and second finger like that. You see how they form a long V? Then you take your hand, you tuck the point of the V into the palm of your hand, close your fist around the spoons, like this. Every hand is different, every spoon is different, you may have to shift them around a little bit. Then you need your knee, which is another reason I brought the stool, so I have access to my knee. You tap the spoons on your knee like this. Or your hand. You get different sounds depending on what part of your body you tap them on. You put your hand up above your knee, go back and forth. You run them across your fingers like this. Sort of the Lone Ranger effect, which dates me a little bit. Then you can combine the different movements and sounds. And you can play music with spoons. And different spoons have different sounds. I get excited about strange things. This is one of them. These are plastic spoons. Now, they're not any ordinary plastic. They are made out of corn oil. So they're compostable. In a really big compost pile, like the institutional ones that they use bucket loaders to turn, they will turn into soil. In my backyard compost pile, it doesn't get hot enough, so they just kind of half melt and they become twisted spoons. What's a good name for a rock group? Twisted spoons. Now, they have a very different sound because they're made out of corn oil. I'm going to move the microphone down to them because they're a little bit shy. Stay. I know. Isn't that impressive? Just a pair of plastic spoons. They don't last as long as metal spoons. Like some people, they get fatigued. And some people who get fatigued, they crack. And a piece flies off, but it's no big deal. You just got to go get another pair of plastic spoons. These are the ones I'm going to use in this song. They're bigger, they're soup spoons. They used to live in my drawer at home. They have not lived in my drawer at home for about 35 years. They lived in my briefcase. They're bigger because this is a work song. This was sung back in the days by Irish American, African American, at least the first part of it, the first phrase, Chinese American, Japanese American, Italian American, Polish American, a whole bunch of other American railroad workers. You know those, have you ever seen a sledgehammer that weighs 16 pounds, the end of it? Really big sledgehammer? I have one at home. I would not want to work with it for 12 hours, which is what they might do. They have these big spikes, and they'd be nailing the spikes in to hold the tracks together, and to keep a rhythm to their work, they start to sing. They sing, I've been working on the railroad all the live long day. Now that's how fast they sang, because they didn't want to get tired. My dad sang it faster than that at bedtime, because he wanted us to get tired. We had a tradition of rowdy songs for the first 15 minutes, and then the songs would get slower and slower and slower, and hopefully we fall asleep. So we're going to sing at the speed my dad sang. And I'll play the spoon so you can hear what it sounds like. Ready? You know the song. Here we go. Ready? Yeah. I'm working on the railroad all the live long day. I'm working on the railroad just to pass the time away. You hear the whistle blowing, rise up so early in the morning. Can't you hear the captain shouting, Dinah, blow your horn. It's a little faster. Dinah, won't you blow, Dinah, won't you blow, Dinah, won't you blow your horn. Dinah, won't you blow, Dinah, won't you blow, Dinah, won't you blow your horn. Let's whisper. Someone's in the kitchen, Dinah. Someone's in the kitchen, I know, oh, oh, oh. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Ouch. Strumming on the old banjo. A little bit faster. Singing, E-I-E-I-O. 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 Strumming on the old banjo. That's it. If you're ladies at home, you don't know yet, be patient with yourself. You know, and sometimes these things take time. You get frustrated, take a break, shift to a different kind of spoons. You practice slow before you go fast. I learned that a long time ago. Also, if you're getting tired of holding your hand, or if you're teaching a kid how to do it and they're just getting frustrated, you can take a pair of spoons that you don't mind doing this with, and then put a rolled up piece of cardboard in place of your thumb. Or maybe a little chunk of wood, or a ball of clay. Sculpey works for this. And then you wrap duct tape around the spoons to hold them together. It's another great use for duct tape besides repairing cars. I had a red Subaru. Luckily, they make different color duct tapes now. That Subaru got by on inspection for about 3 years with judiciously placed pieces of duct tape on the body. And then you wrap the duct tape around, and it'll hold it in place. Or you can go to a music store and get a pair of spoons like this, already stuck in a piece of plastic. They're a little harder to play and a little more painful to play. This is really hard on me. It's funny, I was in Hubbardston one time, and this 80-year-old woman brought a little suitcase, just about this big. And afterwards, she came up to me and she opened up the suitcase, and inside were 4 pairs of wooden spoons, different sizes, carved so the ends were still together. And so she said, "Can I play spoons with you?" And so for the next half hour, we played spoons. It was really fun. Here's another musical instrument that has its roots in Ireland and Scotland. I'm going to show you. It is cool. You know, little kids, I gotta move this arm. I just want to move. I don't want to wake him up yet. He is asleep, actually. You think he might not be asleep, but wooden dogs sleep with their eyes wide open. It's just the way they're made.
Oh, wow.
Because little kids will sometimes ask me if he's real, and I always go, yes. Because 1, I don't want to hurt his feelings, and 2, he is a real dog. He's just a real wooden dog. And before we wake him up together and have him dance, I should tell you a little bit the history of this instrument. Originally, in Ireland and in Scotland, even in London actually, in Dublin, Edinburgh, Glasgow, they'd have buskers on the side of the street, playing fiddle or maybe button accordion, and they would play music and they'd have their hat down for coins for people to toss in so they could make a living. And to have an extra added attraction and some percussion, they would have what was called a jig doll. It was actually like a marionette. You know, marionettes, you have the strings coming up to a little cross of wood that they're attached, and when you move the wood, it makes the puppet move. Well, instead of being attached to a cross of wood, those strings would come up to a pulley, back to another pulley, and then down to a pedal. And when the busker would play music, they would tap their foot on the pedal and the strings would move, and the jig doll would dance a jig. That's how it got its name. On a wooden board that was hollow underneath, so it was like a drum, a percussion instrument. Then they started making the dolls smaller. You know, about this size, only in the shape of people, and have a board that they'd sit on and bounce. You know, if they're going to accompany somebody else without using their hands to play something. And then in this country, the Scots-Irish down in Appalachia started making the limberjack, as they were called, into animals. Because kids would play them at the dances, and you may have noticed the kids like animals, right? And with 4 legs, they made more noise. And you may have noticed that there's a lot of kids who like more noise. So, he's gonna dance for you, but we gotta wake him up. I'm gonna move over to this stool because I gotta sit on it to keep the board in place. Some people like being woken up by really loud noises. Alarm clocks, people yelling in the room. "You're gonna be late!" He does not like that at all. He likes being woken up pretty gently. So on the count of 3, we're gonna just whisper, "Bingo, please wake up." See, if I do it by myself, it doesn't work at all. I need a little help. For a lot of reasons. Ready? Here we go. On the count of 3. Yeah, whispers. Right. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Bingo, please wake up. That worked. He's awake. Cool. So now, all we need is a song for a dog named Bingo to dance to. Any ideas?
Bingo. Bingo.
Yes, the one about him. He gets really excited, and a lot of people do when he sings songs about. Yeah, that one. So we're going to sing that song, and you'll hear him dance on the board. But first, Bingo, you've got to get on the board to dance. Takes him a while to get settled. I think he's ready. Either that or he's doing yoga. He does a really mean downward dog. Enough with the bad jokes. Let's dance. Sing with me. You'll hear him dance on the board. And you guys are good singers. He'll get really excited. We don't do the whole song where we clap on the beat and clap, and we'll just sing because I got another song I want to do for you. Bingo, don't fall asleep. We better start singing. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name. B-I-N-G-O, B-I-N-G-O, whoa, I-N-G-O, Bingo was his name. Oh. Wow. And then he likes to take a bow, and then he usually falls asleep. Yeah, he's been doing a lot of shows lately. He could use a nap. You could not get me to take a nap when I was a kid. My mom would send me up on Saturday morning with my dad with a book we got out of the library for a nap. And my dad would read to me for 20 minutes, and then my dad would fall asleep. And I would come downstairs. But at least my mom got 20 minutes, right? And then you know what I discovered in high school? Naps are good. I would come home from high school, a lot of homework, a little stressful. My mom would say, take a 20-minute nap, I'll wake you up. And I did. I have not stopped taking naps since. He's a pretty good napper. Now put him over here. And to make sure he gets a good nap, I'm going to sing a little Scottish song, a piece of it. I'm going to do two versions of it. Well, the first one's going to be a lullaby. Because I'm learning how to play this instrument. You know this instrument?
Yeah.
Ukulele. Yes. And this song actually is a Scottish song. This is not a Scottish instrument. Originally, this instrument came from a Spanish instrument called a cuatro. Because the cuatro was like a small guitar that had 4 strings. And sailors would bring this guitar, this cuatro, tiny guitar, on board ship because it was easier to carry around. And these Spanish sailors came to Hawaii, and the indigenous folk in Hawaii saw this guitar and said, we can make that. And they did, only not quite exactly the same. And they called it a ukulele because when you play it really fast, they thought it sounded like a hopping flea. And that's what ukulele means in Hawaiian, hopping flea. And I am just learning. I started about a month ago. You're never too old to learn a new thing. It just takes me a little longer. So I'm going to do one chorus of this song, playing the ukulele at lullaby speed. I learned when my kids were born, actually when my niece was born, before my kids were born, you can take any fast song, and if you sing it slow, it becomes a lullaby. And kids love that, especially when you're holding them. This song originally, Scottish song, was from the Jacobite Rebellion. And it was like a little history lesson in the song form. And one of those songs that's really hard to learn because there are so many complicated words in it and nothing really rhymes the way you think it's going to. And then someone really enterprising took the tune of this song and made it into a kid's song about a guy named Aiken Drum who was made out of meat. All kinds of meat, including haggis. Yeah, I noticed a few looks of askance at haggis. Yes, even the thought of haggis can put somebody off ever even trying it. You know, a version of blood sausage where you take the blood from the animal, you mix it with oatmeal, and you make a little cake out of it, you fry it up. I went to Scotland. My dad got frequent flyer miles, and I couldn't use them all. And we have the same name, so occasionally he'd call me up and he'd say, I got some miles that are going to expire. You want to go somewhere? And one time I said, sure, I'd love to go to Scotland. I was self-employed, so my boss was going to give me time off. And I got the tickets, and he also had enough frequent flyer miles to get me a car that got me most of the places. I took a ferry over to an island where I hitchhiked. And I was over there in Scotland, and the first night, As I'm driving up to go to the Albert Hebrides, I stopped in Argyle at this sort of hotel. It was also a bed and breakfast. And I get up the next morning and I come in and I sit down in the place where I'm going to get breakfast. And the waiter comes over to me and says, "Now, would you like the full breakfast?" And I was hungry. "That sounds good. I'll have the full breakfast." I had no idea what it was. And so we went out, and I came back with this huge plate that had 3 different kinds of blood sausage on it, as well as eggs and the sort of mushrooms and tomatoes that I never had with breakfast, but there they were. And bacon that was kind of like ham. You know, stretched out there, very fatty, and that's okay. I like meat. And so I ate the whole thing, but as I started to eat it, I look, and there's these 4 heads looking out from the kitchen door, going, "I wonder if the American's going to eat it." And I did. So in this country, I'm probably a vegetarian, changed the words, and this is the chorus. Let me see if I can get this right. There was a man lived in the moon, in the moon, in the moon. There was a man lived in the moon. His name was Aiken Drum. Now that's the lullaby version. Someday I'll get faster at it. But there's another instrument that has nothing to do with Ireland, except it sounds a little bit like a washboard. But I can play a faster version of this. This is what's called a güiro. The Taínos Indians in Puerto Rico grew gourds that they sometimes make into birdhouses or ladles or bowls. And this version, which kind of looks like a crook-neck summer squash, except it's brown, they would take it and cut a hole in, take the seeds out, plug the hole back up. They'd have all these scratches that they made, usually when it was green, because it was too hard to make it when it was dry. And then, you can tell this is from Puerto Rico because it's got a little flag of Puerto Rico on the top. They take a stick and rub the stick. I'm going to use this comb because it's a little louder. And there are actually Irish bands now that will use a güiro as part of the band. There's all these bands that add things from other cultures to themselves. I have an Afro-Celt band that uses one of these. Here's the faster version. Aiken Drum ate so much that he turned into the foods he ate. For example, his hair was made spaghetti, spaghetti, spaghetti. His hair was made spaghetti, his name was Aiken Drum. And his eyes were made of meatballs, meatballs, meatballs. His eyes were made of meatballs, his name was Aiken Drum. And when you get kids doing this, you have them guess what's going to be next. For example, I say, okay, his nose was orange and long and grew in the ground. What could it be? And the kids will all go,
Carrots.
carrots, right? So we put the nose up and you have a dance like a carrot, and we sing. And then his mouth was made of something yellow and you could peel it. And they'll go, bananas, right? But if you have a banana mouth, your songs are kind of mushy. Although you do have an appealing smile, which is one of my favorite jokes. And the kids will groan, and then we'll go on and sing. And then we get them up on their hot dogs and jump on their toes are made of jumping beans, and they'll jump up and down. And then the last chorus, the last verse is always, and wasn't he a young man, young man, young man? Wasn't he a young man? His name was Aiken Drum. And that's the way it is with folk songs. You can make them fun for folks. They travel around. This song, I'm going to use these spoons because I haven't used them yet. This song, as I learned this song from a friend of mine, Roger Tinknell, who's a great musician. He's actually been here too. He taught me this song, and then I did research about it, and I was looking, and I saw that every Scottish band I found that sang the song, they said it was a Scottish song. And every Irish band that sang the song, they said it was an Irish song. So if you're Irish, you can claim it. If you're Scottish, you can claim it. And if you're neither, you can just guess which one you want it to be. I sort of say it's both. These spoons are pretty cool. I got these from church. I didn't take them. They gave them to me. My mom used to say when I was a kid that I'd forget my head if it wasn't attached. And it's still true. Have you ever heard that? Of course I did, yeah. It's still true. I remember more things, but I have more things to remember. The percentage has gone up, but I still forget a few, you know. And I forgot my briefcase, which is what I keep my spoons in when I went to a church to tell stories and sing. And I said, oh, I was going to play spoons. I forgot my briefcase. And the woman looked at me and she said, we've got spoons. Come in the kitchen. And I went into the kitchen. It was one of those big old New England kitchens where the carpenters went crazy in the kitchen. And they sort of challenged themselves to see how big a set of drawers they could build. I don't know if you've ever been in one of these churches, but the drawers, they're like 5 feet wide. And then they're like a foot and a half tall and like 4 feet deep. And she pulled out this drawer and it was filled with just spoons. She said, take a pair. So I did. These are this song has a chorus, which is a little more complicated than some of the ones we've been singing. I'm going to teach you in stages, because this is a tongue twister. We got to start slow. We'll do a call and response style. I'll sing a line, then we'll all sing a line together. Ready? Mary Mac's mother making Mary Mac marry me. Try that part. Mary Mac's mother making Mary Mac marry me. The next line goes, my mother's making me marry Mary Mac. My mother's making me marry Mary Mac. The next line goes, you can tell this is an old song from this line. I'll have to marry Mary to get married to take care of me. Try that. I'll have to marry Mary to get married to take care of me. The last line is, we'll all be making merry when I marry Mary Mac. We'll all be making merry when I marry Mary Mac. Good, good. You made a good start. There are four verses in this song. I'll sing all the verses because I know it's only fair. If you know the verses, you can sing them with me, even if you don't know the same words. It won't bother me at all because I got a sound system. And after each verse, we'll sing the chorus. The first time, we'll do it just the way we did it now. Call and response. I'll sing a line, you sing a line. It'll be a little faster than we just did it, but not much. If you want extra practice, you can sing each line twice. It's okay. And then I'll sing the second verse, do the same thing, call and response, but a wee bit faster. I'll sing the third verse. By then you'll have gotten pretty good at this. You'll be ready to go straight through. We'll take the training wheels off. All right? And then I'll sing the fourth verse, and we'll get a wee bit faster. We'll sing it straight through. There is no fifth verse, but we're going to do a fifth chorus. Just to give you an opportunity to go full speed. All right. And if at any point in the whole process, doesn't matter when your tongue gets tangled around your teeth, because they may, it is a tongue twister. You could just go like this. Ma 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 ma. There's a lot of M's in the chorus. You'll be right a good percentage of the time. All right. So here's the story in the verse. There's a right wee lass, and her name is Mary Mac. Make no mistake, she's the one I'm gonna take. A lot of the fellas wanna get up on her track, but if they do, they're gonna have to get up early. No, we're not gonna go anywhere near that fast. Call and response, you can do it. Here we go. Mary Mac's mother making Mary Mac marry me. Mary Mac's mother making Mary Mac marry me. My mother's making me marry Mary Mac. My mother's making me marry Mary Mac. I'll have to marry Mary to get married to take care of me. There's the hardest line. I'll have to marry Mary to get married to take care of me. We'll all be making merry when I marry Mary Mac. We'll all be making merry when I marry Mary Mac. Good, good. Next time a wee bit faster, but not much. Here's the second verse. Now Mary and her mother go on awful lot together. In fact, you hardly ever see the one without the other. Folks often wonder whether it's Mary or her mother, or both of them together that I'm courting. Now, not that fast, but still faster to do it. You can do it. Mary Mac's mother making Mary Mac marry me. Mary Mac's mother making Mary Mac marry me. My mother's making me marry Mary Mac. My mother's making me marry Mary Mac. I'll have to marry Mary to get married to take care of me. I'll have to marry Mary to get married to take care of me. We'll all be making merry when I marry Mary Mac. We'll all be making merry when I marry Mary Mac. Good, good. You're ready to graduate to the next grade. We're going to do it straight through next time. I have faith in you. You can do it. Here's the third verse. The wedding's on Wednesday and everything's arranged. Your name will soon be changed to mine. Unless money change, making the arrangements and just about arranged. For marriage is an awful undertaking. Now, not that fast, but still faster than to do it straight through. You can do it. Here we go. Mary Mac's mother making Mary Mac, marry me and my mother's making me Mary, Mary Mac. I'll have to marry Mary to get married to take care of me. Well, I'll be making Mary when I marry Mary Mac. Good, good. Now, we're not going to go full speed next time, but we'll get a little bit faster. We'll get that bridge going, and afterwards, I bet you can do the full speed one. At least take it. It's okay. Last verse. It's sure to be a grand affair. Grander than a fair, there's going to be a coaching fair. For every fair that's there, we'll dine upon the finest fare. I'm sure to get my share. And if I don't, then I am very much mistaken. Not that fast, but still faster. You can do it. Here we go. Ready? Mary Mac's mother making Mary Mac, marry me and my mother's making me Mary, Mary Mac. I'll have to marry Mary to get married to take care of me. Well, I'll be making Mary when I marry Mary Mac. Good. I see you've already discovered the secret of going faster. Getting quieter. Yeah, because some of us have discovered if you try to be too loud, too fast, the words trip over your teeth and then they fall on the floor. That's not the point. All right, this time we'll go full speed. You can get so quiet I won't even hear you. I'll know you're doing it because your mouth's moving. Okay, ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mary Mac's mother, Mary Mac, Mary, my mother's making Mary, Mary Mac. I'll have to marry Mary, Mary, to take care of me. Well, I'll make Mary when I marry Mary.
Very well done.
Oh, thank you, thank you. And you as well. That was great. Now, that's actually an old fiddle tune that somebody put words to. If you were a fiddle player, you know the Irish potato famine in the 1800s? The book I was reading about the potato famine said the English had been trying to get rid of the Irish from Ireland for over 200 years. And then the potato famine came in and kind of helped out a little bit. They were growing just one variety of potato all across Ireland. And then the blight came in, and all the potatoes were susceptible to that blight. The crop was destroyed, there wasn't much food. And they heard that the streets in this country were paved with gold. Actually, they were pretty much dirt at that point, but, you know, the rumors got over. And they didn't hear about the signs that said, no Irish need apply. And most of them came over, and when they got here, they either cleaned houses or sewed things or used pickaxes and shovels until things changed a little bit. And if you were a fiddle player, you were in luck because you could sell your fiddle and get a ticket to come over to New York or Boston or down south even. And on board ship, even though you sold your fiddle, you knew all the fiddle tunes, so you start to sing mouth music, it was called, and you play spoons, and you go, and folks would dance on board deck, and then you get over here, hopefully get a job, buy another fiddle. This song is an Irish song. It's pretty famous, and I'd forgotten all about this song. My dad used to sing it at bedtime when I was a kid. It's one of the slow songs at the end of the bedtime ritual. And nowadays you can just type in Irish folk song lyrics on Google, and these sites will all come up. And you can click on a site, and there'll be a list of like 150 titles of Irish folk songs. And if you didn't know the title, you click on it, and all the words will come up. If you know the tune, you can learn the words. If you don't know the tune, you can go to YouTube, and you'll hear a band, see a band singing it, and now you get the tune, you put the two together. I was going through, getting ready to do that with one of these songs, and I saw this title, and I said, oh, I think I know that. I clicked on it. These words came up. I did not have to learn this song. My dad had sung this song for about 10 years, almost every night. I had all the words in the tune in my head. It just came popping right back, except for the last verse. He did not sing the last verse, which you'll kind of guess why when I sing it. I bet you know the song. It goes like this. In Dublin's fair city, where the girls are so pretty, it was there that I first met sweet Molly Malone. She wheeled her wheelbarrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. And the chorus goes, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. And if you didn't know it before, you know it now. So let's go back through it again, one more time. Alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. She was a fishmonger, and sure 'twas no wonder, 'cause so were her mother and father before. They wheeled their wheelbarrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Now the chorus. Alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Now here's the verse I had to learn. She died of a fever, and no one could save her, and that was the end of my Molly Malone. Now her ghost wheels the barrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Last time. Alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Nice singing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and you can guess why my dad did not sing that last verse at bedtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, even Lassie, the TV show that came on before The Wonderful World of Color, could scare the heck out of me enough so I had bad dreams. So can you imagine what a ghost story at bedtime would do, right? Yeah. But you know, my dad passed away about 6 years ago now. Every time I sing that song, it's like he's right there with me. You know? Songs are great that way. This song also has Irish roots. It's a sailing song. And if you didn't have a fiddle to sell or didn't have the money for a ticket, you could hire on board a ship as a crew member to come over to America. And then maybe jump off the ship and swim to shore. That's how a lot of folks from Ireland got here. Not everybody, but a few. I was down in Long Island, and there was a guy whose great-grandfather was Italian. That's how he got here. From Naples, Italy, he hired out on a boat as a crew member, went over on a ship into New York Harbor, jumped off the ship, and swam to Staten Island. And that's how that family got to America. And sometimes, though, if you were on board ship, you liked being on board ship. You had a good captain, you had a good crew, and you might stay there, and then you'd make up songs to work with. I was reading just the other day, and I didn't know this, that about half of all sailors out of ships in the United States were African American in 1850. So I never known that. And then a good percentage of the rest of them were Irish. And you'd have Irish and African American songs that would start to be sung. This was a work song that I learned on board the Clearwater, and it's a boat that goes up and down the Hudson River. When we were hauling sails, somebody would sing a song to, you know how you're working together, like you play tug of war, you go 1, 2, 3, pull. Well, on board ship, they can't boring, go 1, 2, 3, pull all the time, so they start making up songs to pull on the beat of the song. And this is an Irish song that has a chorus. The chorus is a little different. It comes in the middle and at the end. So I'll sing a line, we'll sing a line together, I'll sing a line, we'll sing a line together. Luckily, the two lines that we all sing together are exactly the same. So you only have to learn one line. This is the song, the chorus. Way, haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. That's it. Right? Pretty simple. And the reason we're going to give a little emphasis on Joe is so we can pretend to be working. If you haven't learned yet how to pretend to be working, it's a really good skill. All right? I learned it a long time ago. All right? Here, we'll do that together. Ready? Way, haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. Good. You got it. Okay. Here's the song. Whenever we get to that line, I'll raise my hand up like this. You'll know exactly what to do. We'll all sing together. Once I lived in Ireland, a-digging dirt and potatoes. Way, haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. Now I'm on a Yankee ship, hauling sheets and braces. Way, haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. Once I knew a Yankee girl, she nearly drove me crazy. Way, haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. Now girl, she nearly drives me crazy. Way Holloway, Will Holloway Joe. King Louis was the king of France before the revolution. Way Holloway, Will Holloway Joe. But then he got his head cut off, which spoiled his constitution. Way Holloway, Will Holloway Joe. Way Holloway, Will Holloway together. Way Holloway, Will Holloway Joe. Better weather. Way Holloway, Will Holl for better weather. Way Holloway, Will Holloway Joe. Good singing. Good singing. Thank you. Now, I got one last song and then an Irish blessing for you that I just learned about 2 weeks ago. This song, my dad sang a little bit, and it's a Scottish song. And it's kind of about spring, even though it mentions summer. I don't know if you noticed, I was out there shoveling snow the other day, and I'm going to get to do it some more on Sunday morning. And even though I was shoveling snow, it was a bright sunny day. I always wait until it's all over. It's like one of the other benefits about being self-employed and working from home most of the time, except when I'm traveling like this, is I can decide, okay, I don't shovel until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'm supposed to get up at 5 so I can get out the door at 6. So I was out there and it was sunny and the snow was light and fluffy and the birds were singing, and I noticed they were not singing their winter songs. Even though it just snowed, they were singing their spring songs. So spring is going to come. The birds know it, and they're telling us that it's going to come. So that's what's in the song. And you may have heard it. Goes, for the summertime is coming, and the birds are sweetly singing, and the wild mountain thyme blooms around the purple heather. Will you go, lassie, go? In the chorus. And we'll all go together to the wild mountain thyme, all around the purple heather. Will you go, lassie, go? I will build my love a bower by yon clear crystal fountain, and in it I will pile all the flowers from the mountain. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to the wild mountain thyme, all around the purple heather. Will you go, lassie, go? If my true love will not go, well, I'll surely find another to the wild mountain thyme, all around the purple heather. Will you go, lassie, go? Last time. And we'll all go together to the wild mountain thyme, all around the purple heather. Will you go, lassie, go? Nice singing. Thank you. And as I said, I just learned this Irish blessing. I've seen different versions of it. You know how it is when you, as a kid, I used to make model cars. Remember those? Did you get glue all over your fingers as you're making them when you're a klutz like I am? And I found this box. It was a Plymouth Valiant. And I had never seen it. I like the name, you know, Valiant. It sounds great, like it's a knight or something. And so I thought, that's a funky looking car. So I made the model that weekend. For the next week, I kept seeing Plymouth Valiants all over the place. I had never seen one before, you know. And so I learned this blessing about 2 weeks ago, and I kept seeing it in different places, and I had never seen it before. It's an Irish blessing. It goes, may the road rise to meet you. And may the wind always be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. and the rains fall gentle on your garden. And until we meet again, may you be at peace. Thanks for having me here. Thanks to the Senior Center for having me back. A special thanks to the Lunenburg Cultural Council who funded my visit. They do a lot of great things in town. This is just one of them. And have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day and a great spring, everybody. Thank you. And I think there's some more food and coffee left if you want some.